So I was very depressed a couple of weeks ago. Of course, the reason being I read The Poppy War. I had this plan to, read the rest of the Poppy War books, finish the series this year. But the book took many years off my life, and I really needed to take a break. I needed to read something a bit more fun, a bit more lighthearted. And based on what I had heard about this series, I thought that the Dresden Files would be the perfect medicine. This is a very long-running urban fantasy series by Jim Butcher. It is currently made up of 17 full novels and multiple novellas and short stories. It follows Harry Dresden, a wizard for hire living in Chicago, where he works as a sort of private detective in regards relating to magic. Because there is a lot of magic in this world. And today we're going to be talking about the first book in the series where it all got started, Stormfront. Now, as I mentioned, Harry is sort of a private detective, and this book starts with a new client calling him, a very frightened woman asking him to find her missing husband, as she thinks his disappearance may be magic related. While during the same day, the police, who Harry often acts as a magic consultant for, call him over to a crime scene where two people have been brutally murdered, which they also suspect might be magic related. Going off of a few leads, now it's up to Harry to get to the bottom of these two mysteries, and when he learns that they might be related, it becomes a bit of a race against time because not only are more lives in danger, but his could be as well. So right off the bat, something I really liked about this book was the world building here. Like I said, this is urban fantasy. It involves a lot of classic fantasy creatures and tropes that we are known for, but it takes place in the middle of Chicago. There are multiple factions of different fantasy creatures within the city. You have mischievous fairies going around causing trouble, and of course you have wizards, Dresden being one of them. He can brew potions, cast spells, all sorts of wild things. And all of the magic stuff, while it is hidden to normal people, it's kind of more of an open secret, as Harry sort of does publicly advertise himself as a wizard, but most people think that he's full of it. Yet Harry's contact within the police, Murphy, among other characters, are very much aware that magic is a real thing. Through glimpses into Harry's past, we realize that he did have some run-ins with the Magic Council, who are basically the government, the law of the magic world. And now in this first book, he's sort of on probation. He is allowed to operate and do his thing, but if he breaks any of the magic laws at all, he will be executed. And he's assigned like this supervisor guy who just shows up whenever Dresden is casting magic, and he's like, hey man, what are you doing? You're gonna break some laws today? Do we get to kill you today? So yeah, this really does feel like a world that has had a lot of thought and care put into how it is constructed. Obviously, we don't go super in-depth on a lot of things, because not only is this the first book, but it's also pretty short, but I can definitely see the foundations being set up for a story that I know is going to get much bigger. And the story really complements this world building. While it is nothing remarkable, it is still a pretty solid mystery thriller with a lot of supernatural things thrown in. As Harry follows leads and, interviews people, both normal humans and supernatural creatures, it sort of takes us on a tour through this version of Chicago as it becomes fleshed out and we learn about it more. I do think there was a lot of great suspense in this book. As I mentioned, in the halfway point, it does become a race against the clock. Harry has to figure out this mystery or a lot of bad things are going to start happening. There was also a surprising amount of action in this book as well, as Harry is forced to use his magic powers to defend himself, defend others, and I thought the way this magic system works was really creative and fun to learn about. Harry himself was a pretty interesting protagonist. As I said, there were a lot of things about his past that they mentioned, but we don't know much about yet, which leads him to be a bit of a mysterious figure, but also one you want to learn more about. He's also very sarcastic and witty, which infuses the book with some humor, gives it a bit of a lighter tone, which I thought worked really well for this story. Now, there is one thing about Harry's character, though, that I know is a criticism a lot of people bring up about the early books of this series. He's a bit of a sexist, he's, he likes objectifying women a lot. Yeah, I can definitely see why people get annoyed by it. And normally that stuff annoys me too, but I don't think it was that bad in this book, because it is presented as a bad thing that he does. It is a character flaw. He gets called out on it. He knows he probably shouldn't do it, but but he just does it anyway. And I think that's the big difference, because I've read things before that have this type of stuff in it, but it's either, not addressed or presented as a good thing. And I do think it being presented as a bad thing does make things a lot different, but I can still understand why people would be pretty annoyed by this. And thankfully, I do have it on good authority that this gets addressed later in the series, and it's definitely toned down a lot. But aside from that, I did really enjoy this book. I thought the ending was, fairly satisfying. Again, it was not a remarkable story in any way, but I think it was just good enough, and paired with the really solid world building, I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm very excited to continue with the series for a number of reasons. Because from what I gather, pretty much everyone who reads this series considers the first couple to be the worst ones. And if I'm here already enjoying them, oh baby, I'm hyped. Going forward, I don't really know much about the series, other than a few things, which I'll let you know now in case you were going to comment about it. I do know it starts off as sort of like a case of the week type thing, and then the world slowly expands and it becomes much more epic fantasy, from what I hear, of course. Kind of reminds me of like a Shonen Jump manga in that sense. The only other things I know about the series is that most people think that Deadbeat and Changes are the best ones. I know that Peace Talks and Battlegrounds, which are the latest ones, are sort of like an Infinity War endgame type situation. It's going to be really interesting seeing how this story evolves into that. And I also know that the series is far from complete. I believe the next book is supposed to come out next year, and there's going to be many more. So I hope to catch up one day. At least I'm sure I will be by the time it ends. So my goal moving forward for this series, in case you are wondering, I'm not going to be making a single video on each book, but I'll probably read a bunch and then make a video on it. Maybe after I hit a certain milestone in the story. The rate that I go through them, I probably won't be super fast. I'm not going to be binging them or anything, but I'm about to start the second one. I'll read that through August, and then I'll probably just go at my own pace. I have no idea when I will be caught up, but it's a goal. I'd like to do it. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. If you've read this book or the whole series, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And I will see you all next time, which, depending on how quick I get through Lightbringer, which I've already started, is fantastic. The next video will either be a review for that or a review for Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes trilogy. Whatever order those will be in, I don't know, but those will be next.